Hey guys, welcome to day 3. Today we are going to be talking about your story. I don't know your story, but hopefully you guys are going to be able to formulate that, condense it, and make it very powerful but concise. That's usually the goal when it comes to this. And we're all going to have a different story, and there's no right or wrong way to tell your story, but there's a few different tips that I'll tell you which will help you create your story, hopefully. So that you can actually get it across to people. Put yourself out there, be vulnerable, share that story with other people in hopes that it will empower them and inspire them to also change their lives and just make healthier choices in their life. And you never know who you're going to impact with your story. That's the crazy thing about it, is putting it out there is scary sometimes, depending on what kind of a story you have too. It could be something that was very difficult for you to share. And for most people, it is very difficult to share anything about ourselves, especially on social media. But in doing so, you will have a huge impact on many people. And you may not get a lot of comments or likes on that post on social media, which is not what we're out for anyway. We're out for impact. And you're going to impact a ton of lives by doing that. So hopefully this will help you break down ways to formulate your story, okay? So the first thing that I want you to do is to find the right starting point, okay? So we're not going to go back to your childhood super far back unless it was something that's very key to your story. But for the most part, you want to start with the obstacle, right? That kind of got you to that point, that got you into the rut, or what got you to that point where you were like, okay, something needs to change. And then we're going to move into the defining moment, okay? So the defining moment is, what was the reversal of fortune, the major whirlwind that made you stop and rethink change, okay? Was there a climatic turning point, this aha moment, or this moment in your life where you were like, okay, something's got to change, right? That you felt like you had to do something, or you know, you were hitting rock bottom kind of thing, right? Or you had to make a change, or in the next 6 months you would hit rock bottom, whatever your story is for you. So then the next point is to cross the threshold. So describe that initial reaction that you had when your coach first mentioned the opportunity, all right? Talk about that. Were you surprised? Were you skeptical? Were you flattered that they asked you about it, or asked you to join the sneak peek? Like, talk about that moment and how you felt. Maybe you felt, super excited that somebody believed in you and saw something in you that maybe you didn't see in yourself, right? So talk about that moment and how that felt, and then take your audience into your world as you're describing that. Be very descriptive in how you write it, and make sure you're putting it into your own words, just as if you would say it to somebody else, okay? And then you want to end your story with a good feel-good moment, okay? That priceless feel-good moment of your transformation, and for being a successful coach, and if you're having a thriving business, what did coaching do for your family? If you're brand new and starting this, obviously you're going to struggle with this part where you're like, well, I just signed up, so I don't have this success story or anything like that, right? But there's still things that you can talk about. How do you foresee your coaching business transforming your life and the life of your family, right? Like, what do you see as your future now that you've made this step into becoming a coach? What are you hopeful for? What are you hopeful that will happen to your family, right? So what are your aspirations? Different things like that if you're just new starting out. So once you get your story, hopefully you can put it into your own words, make it a little more fluent. When you are writing it up, you want to make sure that you have small paragraphs. Don't put it into one huge paragraph, because what happens is people are scrolling through Facebook or whatever, and they see this big huge chunk of paragraph, and it's really hard to read. You may have done it yourself and you just scroll on past it, right? So you want to make sure that you have it spaced really well, that it's a couple sentences in each paragraph. It's easy for people to stop and read, and make sure you are relatable, you're being vulnerable, meaning you're being genuine and authentic, and you're not trying to create this, facade of a life or a different kind of story. Just be true to who you are and just tell your story. Your story is very powerful no matter what it is. You may feel like my story is not good enough because I never really had a struggle. And that's not fair to say either. And most people who struggle with their story are the people who haven't really had a big struggle. Maybe they were fit their whole life. But that still does not mean that they can't be successful. There's an amazing transformation that happens internally with this as well. So make sure you take a bit of time to think that through, okay? And then once you have it, I want you to kind of repeat it over a few times so that you know your story well enough that if somebody were to ask you, you could kind of tell them in a nutshell, like an elevator speech, right? Or like a 10-second pitch that you could just be like, yep, this is, kind of what got me started. My coach asked me to do this. I said yes, and blah, 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 and here I am, and I can't wait to see where this takes me, right? So that's pretty much it. You can't make a mistake. That's the other thing. It's a good thing about this is that it's your story. There is no wrong story. These are just tips to help you craft your story in a good, concise way, right? That it's powerful, it's moving. So you can write up your story. You guys can send it to me first if you want to proofread, if you want, for your first time. I would love to read that through and give you some, constructive criticism or feedback on that. Never take it personally. Again, if I'm ever giving you constructive criticism, it's just that. It's an incredible story, but I think if you made a few little switches here and there, then you would get more engagement or something like that, right? And try not to use too many words like Beachbody, 21-day fix, Shakeology, like using all those words and stuff like that. It can come across as salesy when you're trying to just share your story, right? So there's ways to go with that as well. If you're unsure of how to word it, I'm your girl. Just shoot me a message. But what I would like you to do, if you are comfortable in doing it and you feel confident in your story and you want to go ahead and do this, is to go ahead and create your story and post it on social media and tag me in it, okay? So that can be part of your story, be like Jen Shepherd, or if it's your coach, then tag your coach, right? Whoever signed you up in it, and say, so-and-so approached me about this opportunity or invited me to a sneak peek into what is coaching, and yada, yada, yada. Finish your story there, okay? So that is your challenge for today on day 3, and I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow. Bye.